spanking brand new 24-hour-a-day music station. And, of course, Pete's Time Out. Later in the show, everybody, we're going to have tickets to the Bruno Mars Experience, which is coming up next week. And it's Earth to Mars. And in case you didn't know, wife, that's like a band that plays Bruno Mars songs.
Well, thank you for clarifying.
Just in case you didn't get that from the title of the band, Earth to Mars.
If I don't know what I would do if I didn't have you to explain.
Thank you very much for making sure the audience knew who buttered the bacon here. And that's coming up next week. That's the Friends of the Arts concerts that are held at Salty Sam's. And we have a long show today. Just want to let all the affiliates know that we may run long today because we have so many we have so many people that want to be on the show. But we're thrilled and excited to have Roger Mercado from Lee County on the first half of the show, unless there was anything you wanted to say first before we introduce Roger and talk about all the services that he provides to Lee County and the veterans and the homeless. And
I did have one question.
Okay, go right ahead, dear.
Nothing to do with that.
Yes.
Your last name is Mercado?
Yes.
Does that have anything to do with like the Mercado down towards Bonita or Naples?
If it did, I wouldn't. If it did, I wouldn't be working for the county.
I was going to say, wow, you're really, that's a fancy place down there.
Yeah. So, Roger, you are the director of the Lee County Human and Veteran Services.
Why do you do the human thing?
As opposed to inhuman, I guess, right? Or
correct.
Why do they have to have human in there? As if people didn't know that you were actually helping humans.
I think that the shift years ago went from social services to
human
services to make it a little more personal. So we're branded with that.
So what exactly is your job?
So I have the pleasure and opportunity to be the director of the agency. And we've got about 80 employees. And with those different program areas, we have anything from youth services to providing funding to nonprofits and everything in between. Mostly this recently, as a result of the pandemic, a lot of our services targeting individuals and families that are experiencing homelessness have really expanded over the last 2 years.
And you have had several stints here with the county. You were telling me while we were hanging out in the green room, which is table 3 here. It's not even green.
Yeah,
we need to get a green room, don't you think? I mean, we had a big crowd.
I was asking for colored M&Ms, and I didn't even get that in the green room.
I like that idea. Colored M&Ms. How many colored M&Ms are there now? Do you know?
I do not know.
Didn't they just come out with a new M&M that's going to identify as something, or like they want to be hip, right? Did you hear that? There's an M&M that's going to identify as a certain kind of
warn you.
M&M.
I didn't get to
You don't remember seeing that?
I should have done my research before coming here this
morning.
morning.
Come on, Roger.
Yeah, he's going to go take a left turn and go right off a cliff.
Anyway, so this is your third stint with the county.
Correct. I started in 1990 when the county at one time had a children's home where children were the residential program. And if there was suspicion of abuse or neglect, children were removed from the home. And before they went into a foster home, the county used to have a children's home. So I started with the county in 1990. I left in 96, had the opportunity to come back in 2000, left in 2006. You'll see a pattern here with sixes. And then had the opportunity then really in 2016 to come back as the director for the department that really kind of mentored me and nurtured me through my career.
Was there a reason you were trying to do 666?
No, there was not. There was not. See. Although I'm going to play that lottery number, I think.
Yeah, there you go.
Say that.
Wait,
I know the other day when it was 2-2-22. That would have been a good one.
Did you say you?
And that's
going
to come up again.
It is?
Yeah.
When is it going to come up again?
Think about it.
2-2-22. How could that come up again?
February 22nd.
There'll be an extra 2 in there. You see, most people know that watch the show that she's the smart one and I'm the dumb one. I mean, I know I have to point that out every once in a while, but it's crystal clear that she's the brains of the family.
That's too much math for this time of the morning.
Yeah. So, Roger, we're really here to talk about the homeless, in addition to the other, especially the veteran services. But it's hard to try and get a grasp of whether or not Fort Myers Beach has a homeless problem, because I think when there's an issue with a homeless person, it gets magnified more than maybe when there's not an issue. Because just for an example, as I was sharing with you before, the business next door, they've had an issue 3 different times. Like there was a big giant naked man laying on a cardboard box once. Luckily it was warm out, so he didn't need covering. The second time he
was that lucky though.
A different person lit a fire in the back and could have torched the whole Times Square area. And then the most recent one, you could see on the video, the guy was putting sacks over his body, and it was cold. Obviously, they need a place to. I guess they need a place to. It wasn't warmer because it was still outside, and then the cardboard boxes. And hey, do you know? I know it's a long lead up to the question. She hates when I set the stage for things.
I'm like, land the plane, Ed. Land the plane.
No kidding.
She thinks everybody understands where we're going with this, but I guess
they
the question is,
they do.
Do you think there's a homeless issue on Fort Myers Beach?
I think there's all throughout Lee County. There's some challenges that people are experiencing, and what we used to say is the beach. I don't mean this in a bad way. The beach is a great place to be homeless because you can fit in with everybody. If you walk around in a tank top and flip flops and shorts, you look like everybody else walking the boardwalk this morning. And so you have access to beach showers. You have access to the Gulf to jump into if you need to clean up. So you can fit in and blend in and not stick out, and hopefully keep to yourself because you look like everybody else on the beach.
Most people don't take a shower with soap, though. I mean, they just brush it off the sand and stuff. But I hear what you're saying. Now, Bob says exactly what you said. If I was homeless, I'd want to live on Fort Myers Beach. Right. I mean, so how do you address that?
So there's a couple different outreach programs that are physically on the beach through a lot of different faith-based providers. We actually have outreach teams that go out to different parts. Sometimes
called hot teams.
Yes, you've done your research.
Well, with the sheriff, I mean, even I know that. Don't make me look dumb. I don't need any help looking dumb. Even I knew that. But it's with the sheriff and it's with the county.
It's with the sheriff, the county, and then CenterStone.
Correct.
And so what's CenterStone?
CenterStone is a behavioral health agency here in town. And so
did you know that?
I didn't know CenterStone. I never heard of CenterStone.
They're out of Sarasota, and they were doing some things here locally in some different aspects. And since they had some experience in Sarasota doing this with law enforcement and other entities, we recruited them to do the same thing here. And the idea of a HOT team, which stands for Housing Outreach and Treatment Teams, is, especially for law enforcement, if they're engaging with this population anyway, why not give them additional tools in their toolbox to hopefully address the issue that's presented to them, so they have the ability, because sometimes there's a lot of folks who may have some behavioral health challenges or substance use challenges. Yeah, they can do a warm handoff to CenterStone to help meet those clinical needs, so law enforcement can get back to their normal job.
So I'm sorry, go ahead. We digress. So there's a team down here.
So we work.
Well, there isn't a team down here. No.
Well, he was saying there's some outreach teams.
I think there are teams, but they're not down here. They're all over the county, and
we have them all over the county. And you referenced the sheriff's office. So we partner with the City of Fort Myers Police Department, Cape Coral, Sanibel, Port Authority, FGCU, and the sheriff's office. And so what they do as their officers, they take some of the HOT team responsibilities and they layer it on some of their other officers or deputies. So for the sheriff's office, they call it, I believe, CREW, Community Response Unit.
Okay.
And so those deputies or civilians take on some of those HOT team responsibilities while they're down here on the beach.
How often does the HOT team come to the beach?
Well, because it's part of the sheriff's office, they're here every day. But if there's an incident, we've had our staff come out doing some outreach when there's an incident at a restaurant or a church or another business, where we'll get a call and they'll say, "Hey, Roger, we've noticed some things happening on our property. We don't want anyone to get arrested. We just have seen evidence that there's people maybe staying here, and how can we help them?" And so then we'll send out our HOT team. And the sheriff's office has been great, whether it's late night or early morning. If we make the call, they will go check on that business just to see if there's any activity, then try to connect them, most importantly, to shelter. And then shelter can lead to housing programs and get somebody off the street.
The churches down here do a lot for the people without homes. And they sometimes, I feel like they take a criticism that's unfair, because if it wasn't for what the churches were doing, and the way as Pastor Sean explains it, is that everybody is allowed to come in, whether they have kids or not kids, or they're homeless. But he has a specific process. These people have to have names, and they have to have places like an ID, and so he knows who they are. So he has a pretty good grasp of it. If you didn't get a chance to watch the council meeting, or not the council meeting, the public safety meeting, when they met with the churches, he laid it out exactly how things are done. But if the churches weren't helping, that they would break into businesses more, don't you think?
If you look at it based on your example, they're getting a lot of their basic needs met through the church. And if the church wasn't there providing it, they would have to go elsewhere to get those basic needs, whether it's food, shelter, clothing. So I think you're onto something making that connection. It's all about basic needs. And if you can get someone's basic needs met, that at least gets them through the day.
So when you see somebody walking through Times Square that's talking to himself and acting crazy and looks like he could get violent, that does happen. What do you do?
A lot of it is how you engage that individual. And so we were talking earlier about some of the outreach we did this past weekend because the temperatures dropped below 40 degrees. And so we had 8 different points within the county where we sent outreach teams to try to connect people for shelter because it was so cold. And it's all about engagement. It's all about having that non-judgmental presentation.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll do that all the time. We'll just walk up to somebody and you don't know what their situation is because it could happen to anybody. You could have the best dressed person on the beach, but they're living in their car, working out of their car, and you wouldn't know it because of their presentation. So it's all about how you engage with somebody, and as easy as, hey, how are you doing? How's your day? Sounds like you were saying something earlier. Anything I can help you with? And so it is really about the presentation, but having that non-judgmental presentation.
So that means the last time you tackled that guy, you probably shouldn't do that anymore.
Stop.
I mean, you really should be nicer to
do
people.
that.
You shouldn't tackle them like that.
And the same thing with the hot teams. All the hot team members have different shirts than the regular uniform because a badge, a vest, the belt can be very intimidating and may bring back past trauma. And so with the hot team members, most of them try to have different color shirts. So one, the community knows that they're hot team members, but also for that engaging presentation, it's not an officer with a badge presenting themselves. It's someone in a different colored shirt.
John is watching from Wisconsin where it's 1 degree right now. And speaking of the cold, you were saying that you guys have like a trigger, like at a certain temperature, you have something that you put in place that you go out and help the homeless. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. And I'm originally from Wisconsin as well, Kenosha.
Nice.
So I've been down here since 1990. We work with emergency management and a bunch of other agencies and other county departments. And so the trigger really is if the temperature is projected to drop below 40 degrees, we will send our outreach teams out. And so this past weekend, we had Saturday night and Sunday night, 8 teams of anywhere from 2 to 5 people at different locations throughout the community. And we broadcast it through the social media, which sounds odd, but a lot of our individuals we work with have phones.
Right.
We have the ability to text message. So we text message 545 cell phones of individuals that are experiencing homelessness to tell them it's going to be cold. Go to one of these points and we'll get you coffee, blankets, and shelter and get them that access that they need to get off the street.
Now, when it was recently cold and you did that, what was the response? Like,
So in total, we had between both nights 43 unduplicated individuals that wanted to get into shelter, which included a single mom with 2 children. But we also had a lot of folks who said no. They took the coffee, they took the blanket, they said thank you, but they didn't want to go into shelter. And so,
do you have an understanding? Do they say why? Do you have an understanding what some of the reasons are that?
We do, and what we try to do is we have a survey on our app, and so when we're out engaging, we'll ask some different questions. Why don't you want shelter? Some folks, some of it is rumor control. They'll say, well, I smoke and I can't smoke there. And we'll say, you can, you just have to go across the street because it's a smoke-free campus. They'll say, well, I've got a job and I need to leave early and come home late and I know I can't stay there. I'm like, you can, you just have to let staff know when you come and go. So there's a lot of different reasons. What we've learned is a lot of individuals who have a camp either don't want to pack up all their belongings for one night and go into shelter, or they don't want to take the risk of leaving their belongings and having them unsupervised and somebody come through their camp that night.
So you were saying that our friend Ray Sandelli showed up to this. Talk about that, because we always like to talk positively about Ray. She's not a big fan of Ray's.
Oh, stop. How could you not be a fan
I'm kidding.
of Ray Sandelli?
I will say our county commissioners have really leaned in over the last couple of years to the work that we're doing. Just recently, they approved another $1.9 million from the general fund to help some of our programs out of getting people off the street. And so to your point, Commissioner Sandelli was out with us Saturday night, and he's done this multiple times with us to engage, try to get people off the street, just so he has a better understanding of what it is that the hot teams and our staff does every day. Does
he wear his Groucho Marx glasses and mustache so people don't recognize him? Or
no, he is very engaging, and we'll start conversations. He was talking to somebody at the library. We were at the Fort Myers Regional Library Saturday night, and he was talking with someone who actually was from New Jersey. And so they had a little bonding experience and talking about some similar areas in New Jersey.
He's got a lot of experience. He flies jet fighters.
He used to fly Blue Angels.
He's a Blue Angel.
Yeah.
We have a lot of respect for Commissioner Sandelli and all the commissioners, because they really
we know you got to say that. So.
We know Ray's your
So
favorite.
it's 3 degrees in North Dakota right now. I mean, you people that live in those states right now where it's 1 degree or 3 degrees. I
Very
mean, why?
hardy.
Why do you
Very
do that? I
hardy.
don't understand. What's the attraction to 3 degrees? What is it, Roger?
Well, there's
What-
no attraction
what
to
is
3
it?
degrees,
What is it?
but
Tell
there
me.
are other things
like in North
different
Dakota.
places.
Tell me. I picked on Chicago last week because of
Yeah.
all the murders and stuff like that. But what is like North Dakota? Would you move to North Dakota if you were paid $100,000 job?
100,000. That may be a stretch.
Yeah.
As I said, I'm from Wisconsin.
Two?
And I'm not there anymore. I'm down here because of warm weather.
200,000, 250.
What is your
What's your
price?
number?
Annually?
Yeah, what is your price?
We all have a price. We all have a price.
Gotcha.
So when you're talking about finding homes and rehoming folks, I mean, right now, everything is so, how is that even possible?
There's a little bit of a challenge because of the housing market and the inventory. We're very lucky that we have a handful of landlords that have worked with us. And we know some of the folks that we work with have some challenging backgrounds. We've all made some difficult decisions in the past, and some of those decisions still haunt some of the folks
Right.
when they go to complete an application, whether it's a history of evictions or some law enforcement involvement. So we have a lot of landlords. We could use more that are willing to work with us and
good luck
accept
with
a
that.
county check.
Yeah.
Right.
So are there any homeless still living in hotels? Because I know that was part of the plan.
We do, and that 1.9 million I mentioned earlier. So we are working with a hotel in Fort Myers. We're on the tail end of what we called phase 1 of this family transition collaborative.
Mhm.
We have 10 families left that by the end of this month, they should be into their own apartment or house. And so now with that infusion of dollars that the commissioners provided, we're going to work with another 50 families off of, we have a connect list. That list are people who've said, I do want housing, help me. And so we take them off those families that have children or single parent families.
I know some people might be thinking this because I know our audience. I mean, we bond telepathically sometimes. But you have homeless people in a hotel. Are they sitting on a big giant king size bed and they're calling room service for lunch and room service for dinner, and and they've got the robe on and that says, is that how it's going?
Great question. No, we actually have.
That was a dumb.
That was a multiple bell question because
Oh,
he said
my
great. He didn't
goodness.
say good. It's a thing.
The question, the genesis of the question, but the
Here,
way you
okay.
just exaggerate.
He said great question. Just
All right,
sometimes
so continue.
when it happens, it happens. Just go with the flow. Okay.
I love how your husband takes an educational approach to all this. So
Thank you.
he's asking the questions
Thank you.
to tee it up for me.
Thank you.
So we have on-site case managers and on-site clinicians who are working with those families, and they all have tasks they have to do. They have to be meeting with their caseworker. They have to be looking for apartments or houses. And if they're not actively looking, then the clock starts ticking.
I see.
And I will say this, we have had folks removed from the hotel because they weren't following the process and being active participants. So great question. There are consequences for
What would you
decisions.
do? Are they allowed to have room service though? I don't think you really.
No.
Okay, gotcha.
No, we don't pay for room service.
Got you. Okay.
So what are some of the things that you mentioned? A few things. What are some of the other things that they have to do when they're in this program?
If they are unemployed or underemployed,
Mhm.
they have to seek out additional ways for income. If that means if they've got some medical issues and they need to look at applying for disability with Social Security, if they have the ability to work, go out and find active employment, because they're eventually going to have to pay for the unit that they're going to move into.
Mhm.
And so the whole idea is let's provide the opportunity. It's like Pavlov's hierarchy of needs. You
Mhm.
get a roof over their head.
Mhm.
You can provide all those other wraparound services to
Maslow's.
make sure. Yes. Thank you. Very good.
I was like, wait, Pavlov's and the dog.
Yes.
Maslow's.
There was a bell. That's what it was.
Wait a second. Did you just correct him?
I
Did you correct him?
I didn't
we
correct
don't
him.
correct
I did-
guests. I mean, that was the rudest thing I think you've done
No,
in 205 episodes.
I knew
You've
people
never-
were going to
Somebody
chime
else.
in
It's
about
okay
that.
if somebody else corrects him, but oh my, I
It
am
was the
so
bell.
I
It was the
not
bell.
correcting.
I am so
didn't
embarrassed by what you did. You
Oh,
corrected our guest. He's never coming back. He's
Oh,
going to tell Betsy
he's
to
got a
never
pretty
let
good-
anyone else come
I
on the
think he
show.
can- I think
Let
he
me
can
ask the
handle it.
questions, and you just do this with your hair like you love to do.
Please,
Your
please.
your fabulous
So
hair.
go ahead.
So depending on that
Now
individual,
I forgot where we were,
that
but go
individual
ahead.
case plan, they're working with a caseworker. They will have different things on there they have to address. If there's some behavioral health issues or substance use issues, they have to seek treatment.
Right.
If they are underemployed or unemployed, they have to be actively looking for employment. But the part of it is they really have to be looking for a place to live that meets their needs. Whether it's support systems, if they don't have a car, be close to a Lee-Tran bus station stop so they can get to work. Make sure their kids are enrolled in school. So there's a lot of different things. It's all individualized based on their needs, but there are things that are expected of them to be part of the program.
When they're, when they're looking for employment, when they're doing all of those things, do you also provide services to help them, like, the unemployment, directing them to connect with all those other services?
Yes. So we've got our case managers, and they do a lot of
confusing.
coaching.
I mean, it's
overwhelming. If you're just trying to figure out how to get a roof over your head, how do you figure out all these other things?
He couldn't even figure out a bus schedule. There'd be no way. No way.
We have clinicians and case managers that are working.
Are you married, Roger?
Yes.
So you feel my pain.
I cannot confirm nor deny that.
Don't worry, I won't correct you. Go ahead.
Thank you. So everything's based on the individual needs. So the case manager will help direct them. You need to apply for unemployment. This is where you go. We actually had some on-site job fairs at the hotel, and we had a bunch of employees who came in, did interviews that day. We brought in potentially for banking services. If someone is underbanked and they don't really know how to open an account, we provided vaccination clinics. If somebody wanted to be vaccinated, we brought that on site. So we brought a lot of things on site, but also expect them to go out in the community and seek out those services.
Is that mousse in your hair?
Oh, here we go.
It's a light pomade, if you will.
A light what?
Pomade.
Pomade.
Yeah.
Where do you buy pomade?
You don't know what that is.
No, seriously, where do you buy pomade, Roger?
You buy it at that CVS or the hair place.
Is that hairspray?
No.
What is it?
It's a container. It's like.
Why are you answering the question? Okay. I'm asking. He puts it in his hair. You don't put it in yours. Pomade.
I used to.
I would say at least I've got hair. Isn't that part of the
That's
conversation?
That's true.
No,
That's
really.
true.
What is pomade? Is that all natural gel
it's not
when you get up in the morning? Do you
It's a product. It's a
I
product.
see.
Yeah, it's not a gel. It's not a mousse.
I don't have.
I'm not
COVID.
sure I signed up for this.
Good Lord.
So now I have a serious question.
No. All right,
Let me
go
ask
ahead.
a serious question, dear.
Before you forget.
No. So you have all these homeless people, not all of them, but you have homeless people that were outside and then it got cold. Did any of them get hurt by falling iguanas?
Not that we're aware of.
Because that's a serious thing down here. And I'm not joking.
That's what I hear. That's what I hear.
Okay.
I've seen it on the news.
So, now I need to segue here. So
let's talk about Veterans Affairs.
That's exactly what I'm trying to get to. So not only is it homeless, but you're also responsible for veterans assistance. And sometimes those two things go hand in hand.
They do. Our community was recognized a couple of years ago for what's called ending what they call chronic homelessness in the veterans population, which doesn't mean that there's no veteran that's experiencing homelessness. That just means we've built a better system. And so we have 3 veteran service officers who will work daily with either the veteran themselves or their widow or spouse to help navigate what could be a very confusing system of applying for benefits from the VA. Again, you're talking about an older generation who may not be tech savvy. And so our team will help them navigate that process, do the application for them. They actually do outreach in different parts of the community to try to engage with the veterans as well.
Yeah, I was on the website and that page has there's a lot of services. There's a lot of information on there for folks that,
see the kids waving to me?
I did see that.
Yeah. So what I never understood about this country is like every single veteran, when they come back from whatever war they're in, should get everything for free for the rest of their lives. Everything, housing, health. I mean, we saw the last few years how the government can just print money and give it to people, even people that don't need it. The veterans should never, ever have to worry. There should never be a single homeless veteran. Well, I mean, obviously there should be no homeless people, but it should never be a veteran that's homeless that needs anything. They should be given money. If there's a socialist part of this country, it should always be for them.
I think part of the challenge is they're trained as soldiers and warriors and not expected to ask for help and assistance.
Yeah.
And so that mantra, I think that they have ingrained from their training, maybe it's a sign of weakness if I ask for help.
Right.
Maybe.
But I think maybe if you go back to the beginning during the training and say, okay, if you go to war, part of the plan is when you come back, you get everything. And so don't fight it or don't even ask about it because there's going to be a house here. I mean, that's just my opinion.
Too, there's also, people suffer mental health issues from that exposure and their experience too. and then that kind of gets in the way of accessing services as well.
The part of that is accurate, and I think what we've heard as well is when you're getting discharged, all this information is coming at you that you're just trying to soak it all in, and then all of a sudden you're back in society. Now you're like,
when you were following things in total order before that, and being, either,
or you might not have needed it when you first got out, and then time goes on, things happen.
To your point, Ed, about having the red carpet rolled out for veterans, what our team experiences, there's a lot of individuals who either never applied and didn't know that it was even available. And so sometimes they get retroactive pay, or there is an appeal that they could have gone through, but they never did. And so our staff will help go through that appeal process. So we get some folks who retroactive pay double and triple digits because of the pain and suffering and the job they did for our country. They'll get $100,000 check because we didn't do the right thing years ago.
That's not enough, but good.
No, so, and then there's, you have to be careful with that. When you get that, I mean, then that can, not that it's a burden, but I mean, it's got to be managed.
It's life-changing, but also could lead to other things.
So let's final part of our segment here, the homeless situation. If somebody sees a homeless person on Fort Myers Beach, what should they do? What can they do?
So all of our law enforcement partners down on the beach have these rack cards that we have. And so on that card is a couple different phone numbers. One phone number that we have on there is actually staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's 533-7996. It's 533-7996. That number gets you into the process into shelter and housing if that's what you want. And so for that engagement, sometimes it is, hey, have you thought about reaching out for assistance? Let me see if there's a hot team officer, again, because the sheriff's office is down here every day. They can engage with folks as well because they're trained to do that. A lot of it is engagement and making sure they've got the right information. Another phone number that's very easy for folks to remember is 211 United Way, one of our partners.
Okay.
So they will also navigate that individual to our phone number.
Right.
So the other thing is, Pastor Sean, they know every single person that's homeless on this beach. They know their names. They know all the information on them, because if they need services and they come through there, that's part of the deal. If I'm going to help you, I need to know who you are. This way, if you're doing something you shouldn't be doing, he's got a great relationship with the sheriff's department, and they work together to try and prevent things like somebody starting a fire. It doesn't always happen, but I just think that they're doing such a great job because something needs to be done. The sheriff can't be called every single time there's a homeless person laying on a bench. That's not against the law.
So to your example of the gentleman who luckily didn't start a fire and burn a building down, was doing it to try to stay warm.
Right.
And so if there's an engagement to get that individual into shelter, to get into housing, then maybe that doesn't happen.
Right. Well, what?
Anything else, Roger, that you think we missed?
No, I just appreciate the opportunity to help educate the community through this platform.
Thank you. And I'm sorry if she asked some crazy questions. I should have warned you about that. But thank you. We hope you come back again. And thanks for everything. And thanks for all the work you guys do. There's no doubt that Lee County does a lot of great stuff for the homeless population. I guess I did want to ask one more question. Are we going to see more when it gets warmer, tent cities in certain parks? Because that's not against the law either.
So with what happened in Fort Myers, there were a lot of encampments that were set up. And I think because of COVID, there was a perception of there's not a lot of resources. We don't want to overcrowd the jails. Let's let some things happen until it get really out of control. And that's what happened. And so we had as many as 37 tents up at one time in Lions Park. And so there was a point where they then put enforcement in place, and we helped empty that park and get people into shelter and the housing. So by law and by statute, people should not be able to put a tent up in a park overnight. It's the rangers down here that are helping enforce that. The sheriff's office, you can't let it get out of control, because if one goes up, you will have a couple more. And so you kind of have to get enforcement right at the beginning.
Thank you so much for coming in. Thanks for coming down to the beach. And
thank you for having me.
We'll see you soon.
All right,
everybody. Roger from Lee County, and we appreciate him coming all the way down here. Dear, you're going to take care of that.
Okay.
And maybe one other here, if you could take care of this. And I'm going to set everything else up for I'm going to give you my microphone. There you go. All right, folks, we're going to be right back with Adam Rose, who's got baby on the way, but he's going to also talk about what went on this week, the meeting about the bridge. So stay tuned for that. And I'm going to turn over to the wife right now so she can tell you about some of our great sponsors. Here you go, dear.
All right. Oh, you want me to read, right? Okay. Well, then I have to put my glasses on, folks, because, I'm a woman of a certain age. So Island Carts FMB. That's the cart that we took out a couple of weeks ago. They're fantastic. They've got these amazing golf carts that seats 4 or 6 people. They're all tricked out. They're